Good morning, everybody. My name is Bogdan Oldakowski. I'm the Secretary General of the Baltic Ports Organization, and I would like to welcome you at our webinar that is dedicated to comprehensive ports. If you are dealing with 10T policy and motorways of the sea, I'm sure you know what comprehensive ports mean. It's simply a bit smaller ports than the core ports. I'm representing Baltic ports, and you may know that in the Baltic Sea there are so many smaller ports, smaller than core ports, and they are having a large share of the market, and they are very important for effective network of short sea shipping in the Baltic. That's why we have decided to organize this event. And in fact, this is the first event we organized together with European Seaport Organization. So I would like to give a floor now to Isabel Rigbos to give her a few minutes to present ESPO view on comprehensive ports. Please.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you, Bogdan. So my name is Isabel Rigbos, and I represent the European Seaports. And it's too short to give now my vision on the small ports or the comprehensive ports, but we have been doing this kind of small ports days already 2 times here in Brussels and in the past, and I'm happy now to do this for the first time with BPO. And also for the first time we do it virtually, unfortunately. But we always say small is beautiful, and we know that the ports are being hit hard, all the ports, but that at the same time, so their incomes will be shrinking in a way, but the investment needs remain the same, and even will grow, because we have new challenges or growing challenges into greening and digital. And these are also challenges for which size does not matter. It's not because you're a comprehensive port or whatever that you are out of this challenge of decarbonization and greening. But these are very, very difficult investments also to make. So I think it can be a very useful seminar, and I'm looking forward to discuss that with the small ports and with Mr. Bodewijk in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Yes, Isabel will moderate the session after the short break. So she will also have a voice later on. Well, I would like to also say that within Baltic Ports Organization, we do have a working group dedicated to comprehensive ports, and we will have 2 comprehensive ports in our panel later on. But before that, I would like to invite Professor Kurt Bodewijk, European Coordinator for Motorways of the Sea, to present the speech entitled "Shaping the Future Policy of the European Maritime Space, the Role of Comprehensive Ports." And maybe before I give you the floor, Professor Bodewijk, I would like to tell all the audience that if you would like to ask any question, you are very welcome to do it on YouTube. There is a chat, and you can simply write your question, then I'll try to pass it during the panel discussion. So Professor Bodewijk, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Do you see my slides, please? Can you see my slides? No?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Just a moment, I'm sorry for this.
Yes.
So now it works, yes?
You can start your presentation now.
Yes. Do you see my presentation? No?
We can only
Yes?
see your screen.
Jetzt musst du das immer weitermachen.
Nein, ich muss zurück, ich bin zu weit. So, sorry, I apologize by all participants. We had some technical problems. So, first of all, thank you very much for your invitation. I'm extremely pleased that you focus. Sorry, I start also the video. Sorry. Thank you very much for your invitation. I'm extremely pleased that you focus this event of the role of the comprehensive board, since they are, in my point of view, often not given enough attention. Therefore, thank you very much for today's initiative. I can at the same time already announce that I plan myself a webinar for all core and comprehensive boards for the Baltic Sea Basin on the 1st of December. I will co-share this event with my coordinator colleagues Pat Cox from the ScanMed corridor and Catherine Troutman from the North Sea Baltic corridor. This will then be another opportunity under the angle of the motorways of the sea to reflect upon the positioning of the comprehensive board within the TETI policy. I think that's necessary because looking on sea basins would be one of my main points. It's also a good opportunity to thank ESPO and sorry, doesn't work. It's terrible. No, it's also a good opportunity to thank ESPO and the BPO for the very good cooperation in the last 2 years since I got the European Commission's mandate for the motorways of the sea, before working as a TEN-T coordinator for the Baltic Adriatic corridor, both with very active ports. ESPO and the Baltic Port Organization were good partners as maritime stakeholders during the BIP process. Thanks you here for your helpful inputs. Sorry. As you see, I have some problems with the presentation. So let me say some to the key elements of the TEN-T policy. I was asked to present you today my vision of the future of MOS, or what I wish to call in future, the European maritime space. MOS is probably the most important tool for the comprehensive board since it provides them with a very relevant funding opportunity via the Connecting Europe facility. If we want to look at the specific role of the comprehensive boards, I thought it might be useful to start this presentation by briefly recalling the key elements of the TEN-T policy. The Trans-European Transport Network based on a dual-layer network, the comprehensive network as a ground layer, which shall ensure accessibility for the European region in the view of a better territorial and economic cohesion. It shall be realized by 2050. And the core network, which is a network of highest strategic priority with the aim to have it completed already by 2030. If I say that these two networks need to be realized by 2030 and 2050, it means that they will need to fulfill by certain infrastructure standards which are laid down in the TEN-T regulation. Our overall focus is thereby laid on removing bottlenecks and missing links on model integration and interoperability and on improved cross-border connections. In my point of view, maritime connection should not to be disregarded in the context as important cross-border connection. This just as my personal side remark in view of the upcoming negotiations of the new TEN-T guidelines. Let me say something to the role of the comprehensive board. On the TEN-T network, we have 335 maritime ports defined, whereof 231 are on the so-called comprehensive network. Those comprehensive ports shall ensure an enhanced accessibility and connectivity for all European regions. It also ensures an optimal integration of the transport modes, and last but not least, the entry and exit points on our networks on the land side. There are such important nodes on our network which deserve due attention. If you look at the maritime transport volumes, our 335 TEN-T ports handled in 2018 3.8 billion tons of cargo, of which around 1/4 was handled in the comprehensive ports. Their strategic role in the entire network is thus not to be neglected. In addition, comprehensive ports play particularly for short sea shipping a strategic role by ensuring important ro-ro and ro-pax connections of cross-border traffic, especially in the Baltic Sea. Moss in the TEN-T. Here you have a, oh, I'm sorry. Here you have a look on the TEN-T transport nets in Europe. And if you see the blue lines, that is our part, the short sea shipping and the functions of the ports. And they are connected with hinterland. And therefore, I think motorways of the sea extend to complement the TEN-T network, which is maritime ports, also to support and upgraded maritime links. And if you can see here, 40% by sea are the intra-EU trade, which is very important for that what we discussed as Green Deal. We have to also use short sea shipping in this context. And MOS also connect EU countries, including the peripheral regions and the neighborhood regions. Here you have a short look on the MOS funding priorities. So what do we finance? We create upgrade of maritime links or wider benefits action, which also is a huge maritime task which we have to do. Let me say only some words to the MOS DIP. You can see what we do. We take a state of the art and we also look what is the adequate net until 2030. This defining of the adequate state is also a part which how we want to create the future. But I will not explain this whole work, it's more than 80 pages. And let's come to the main pillars of the MOS, of the Motorways of the Sea Detailed Implementation Plan. If you have a look around on this slide, you can see it's a circle. What is the essence of this DIP? My first major concern was that MOS is better integrated in the TEN-T. Only if short sea shipping is well integrating with the corridors and both seaside and landside integrated, what we need is to optimize also the connection of the ports between. Only then can we reach a real freight ship from road to sea if the hinterland connection will work. To this purpose, I propose in my detailed implementation plan to focus on the notion of the European maritime space replacing motorways of the sea. My idea is to include in the new TEN-T guidelines the creation of such as a European maritime space that should encompass all maritime components of the TEN-T and not to be reduced to short sea shipping only. I so much insist on this point because we really need to develop an overarching concept of TEN-T covering both ports and shipping in an integrated view, and in particular from the view of the entire logistic chain. I wish to transform MOS into a truly maritime dimension of TEN. My idea is thus to replace motorways of the sea by a more integrated concept, which I call the European maritime space, with its three pillars of a sustainable, seamless, and smart European space. My MOS work plan already outlines the three developments. These three pillars aiming in the creation of a sustainable, seamless, and smart space. This maritime space have to fulfill a lot of goals. The first pillar, top center, of sustainable maritime space brings forward the Green Deal priorities. This means, for instance, higher efforts in innovation and research for non-fossil fuel power and new engine types. The second pillar, connectivity on the right side, is about the seamless European maritime space. So the main idea here is to ensure seamless transport flows on the entire TEN-T, both seaside and landside. For this reason, it is the key to develop appropriate hinterland and last mile connection. Another aspect I would underline here is that a maritime dimension of the TEN-T needs also to be always seen in a wider global picture because shipping does not end at borders. This is why it's important to improve the connectivity of and with peripheral regions, autonomous regions and islands, and also support the development of links with third countries. I think that this aspect is particularly interesting for comprehensive port and the new strategic role they could play in the future of TEN-T. Finally, interoperability is as regards the smart European maritime space. Digitalization is, of course, the key guiding principle. How can we ensure more efficient transport flows by more digitalized systems? The current COVID crisis shows us quite clearly how important it is to ensure efficient logistic chain, and the crisis definitely accelerated those digitalization efforts. Let me come to the review on the TEN-T policy. I try to give you attention to the role of comprehensive ports within the framework of motorways of the sea, especially in view of my reinforced analysis of sea basin level. However, it goes without saying that they would, in my point of view, deserve much more attention. This is why the upcoming revision of the TEN-T guidelines represents a good opportunity to reflect upon the future of MOS, which also means to reflect upon the future role of comprehensive and core ports as strategic nodes with the entire logistic chain. To just recall you quickly where we stand with regard to the TEN-T revision, two things. First, the TEN-T evaluation is about to be finalized. Its results will be presented by end of the year. Second, at the same time, the Commission will start the impact assessment in view of presenting a legislative proposal for the new TEN-T guidelines by September 2021. The revision will certainly put major emphasis on enhancing the quality of the whole TEN-T as an enabler for the achievement of transport policy objectives in the light of Green Deal. I think that here, again, comprehensive port will have a crucial role to play in terms of decarbonization of transport and shift from road to short shipping. As European coordinator, I already initiated the debate. As European coordinator, I already initiated the debate on how the maritime dimension shall be shaped better to reshaped in the next TEN-T guidelines. If we speak about the future of MOS within TEN-T, I have some ideas. I wish to underline that what I present you today are my first personal thoughts, and I'm happy to take up your ideas and expectation and bring it into a political debate with Commission, Parliament, and Member States. For me, MOS needs to be a part on an overarching integrated concept of TEN-T covering ports and shipping for the benefit of the entire European maritime space. This is also why I already introduced a new notion of sustainable, seamless, and smart, encompassing all maritime infrastructure elements in this new European maritime space. What is of utmost importance for me is that there is a better integration and interconnection of the comprehensive ports network with the entire TEN-T network. They have an important role to play in the logistic chain and deserve such due attention. At the same time, I think that we need stability of the TEN-T network, core and comprehensive, if we want to reach the ambitious goals by 2030 and by 2050. This means that I do not see that there will be fundamental change in how the TEN-T network is defined. We should first realize of what is already defined as core and comprehensive network before extending the network further. However, it is relevant at the same time that the new TEN-T guidelines adequately address the changing role of ports as strategic nodes, not only as transport, but also as energy hubs and clusters. Generally, the TEN-T guidelines need an updated relation to new market realities. I name volume growth, scale increases, but also new challenges like climate, air pollution, noises, and so on, and new needs, especially digitalization, automatization, and as well e-commerce. The new CEF regulation has already been agreed up in early this year. However, it is still awaiting the budget figures of the new MFF, which hopefully will find agreement by the European Parliament in the coming days. In that sense, the new CEF regulation, also the financing regulation, will for the moment not change much to the MOS funding program. At the same time, we face a situation that, contrary to all other funding priorities, the eligibility rules for MOS are defined in the TEN-T regulation and not in the CEF regulation. This is something that I think should be corrected and removed. In my point of view, we should remove the eligibility criteria from Article 21 of the TEN-T regulation and instead incorporation them in a CEF2 multi-annual work program or in specific call text. This will give us much more flexibility and allow for future adjustment of the MOS funding priority. The guiding principle should be the simplification of rules and the simplification of the MOS concept. Since I think that you all agree with me that the funding concept of MOS is often misunderstood or very difficult to communicate. When simplifying the rules for the future MOS-like projects, I think that we also need to reflect upon the opening up of the eligibility criteria for the MOS maritime links. I heard from many stakeholders and also member states that they call for a possible cooperation between comprehensive ports, contrary to the current restriction of always having one core port in a MOS project. I think this is a valuable idea, since many important short sea links are between comprehensive ports only. The same goes for an opening up of the rules with regard for the involvement of third countries under MOS, which especially for the Atlantic, the North Sea, and the Baltic Sea, in the context of the Brexit, could become a very interesting thought. All in all, I think we also need a sound mix of CEF grant financing and innovative financial instruments such as CEF blending facility. The latest MOS call already demonstrated how this could be handled efficiently. MOS funding was limited to ports, hard infrastructure investments, whereas the funding of shipping vessels was excluded. At the same time, the CEF blending facility under the priority of the alternative fuels provided for sound financing basis for the shipping sector. I think that is a good message, that it works. And what we have seen is we are on a good way. I wish to conclude my presentation by thanking you again to put the important strategic role of the comprehensive ports in the focus of today's event. I'm very much looking forward to the feedback panel, which certainly enriches my first reflection on how MOS could evolve in future. But all in all, apologize the technical problems we have to face, but thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Bodevik, for your presentation, for giving the view on future 10T policy and also on the role of comprehensive ports in so-called CEP second, Connected Europe Facility Fund second. I think comprehensive ports would welcome some of your proposals regarding easier way to get financing from European Union. Well, but I think it's very important now to hear the voices from our panel, from the ports. And we have 3 speakers at our panel discussion, and I would like to present them shortly and then give them the floor one by one. So we do have among our panelists, Mr. Patrick Hellman, CEO of the Port of Koskinen. Port of Koskinen is in Finland. The next panelist is Mr. Mariede Laulier, CEO of the Metropolitan Brittany Oost from France. Sorry for pronouncing the name probably not very properly. And we do have also Villu Batsfeld, CEO of the company Sarte Linit. Villu is also a chairman of Baltic Port Organization Comprehensive Ports Working Group. So he will also speak on behalf of the comprehensive ports from the Baltic as such. So I would like now invite Patrick to give your view on and experience and how do you see the future of your port in 10T network. Patrick, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. Thank you to ESPO and BPO for letting me be in the panel. It's an honor to be here, and I will shortly also give you a short presentation of Port of Kaskinen as first. It's on the west coast of Finland in the Gulf of Bothnia. We have it is mainly for forest industry. We have about 1.1 million tons throughput of cargo every year, and about 1,000 vessel movements a year. So it's a fairly small port, but very important for the forest industry. As for what comes to being a comprehensive TNT port, I agree with Professor Bodevig in many respects of his presentation that the motorways of the sea should be more integrated in the TNT system, and it should be more streamlined and simplified to get funding for different development prospects for the comprehensive network. I'm sure that the European Commission has done the right thing to emphasize on the core network to get it ready and completed in 2030. But at the same time, I feel that the comprehensive network has been neglected. I mean, we have 231 comprehensive ports, and we will only be getting 15% of the CEF number 2 funding package, which is, in my point of view, quite low if we are going to achieve the goals for the comprehensive ports. In the regulation, I've found that for comprehensive ports, we always have to be in connection with a core port or a core node to get funding, and from many ports in the Baltic Sea region, that is not really logic all the times, because we have hard to find mutual interest with a core node or core port. What it comes to land-based achievements, there are also, especially in Finland, we have different problems to achieving these goals in the way of how comprehensive ports see it. But all in all, I feel that I feel confident that we will reach our goals, and that when working together to solve the problems, I think we will also be still make a great difference in the future when it comes to digitalization and decarbonization, because smaller comprehensive ports do have a greater flexibility to work with these things that will be ahead of us. Talking about onshore power, digitalization, and environmental problems. But this, I feel that we can achieve together a lot of things. This is I conclude my speech so far this way. Thank you.
Patrick, thank you very much. Yes, in the Baltic, we always say that cooperation is a key. Cooperation between ports is also a key to achieve future goals. Well, but let's jump now to another region of Europe. I would like to ask Mr. Le Molior to present his view on the role of the comprehensive ports. Please.
Thanks, President. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be with my colleagues from Baltic. I do appreciate them and what they do to develop their region as well. We at the moment we have a situation, a particular situation where we are fearing the hard Brexit, because we are running a port which is a cluster port of Brest Roscoff with ro-ro links to Ireland, UK, feeders to Northern Europe, Rotterdam, Anvers, Antwerp, and of course we have bulk traffic. We have 1,200 calls a year, which are not also very significant, but quite important, of course, in the development of our regions. I do concerning this hard Brexit, there was a Parliament initiative to reconsider the corridors in July 2018, and I think this initiative of the Parliament should be reconsidered if we have to face the hard Brexit. But coming back to a much more global view of comprehensive port, because it's always quite regional, even if Brexit is also an issue for all of us in Europe. I do appreciate Professor Bodwick's vision, in which we can recognize that a hard job has been done, and it's the result of a new reflection. But what I have to say is that comprehensive ports, they do have projects of development, as my colleague from Finland said, in green energy, multimodality, decarbonization, and so on. But the judge in the financial support is a mass. It's a critical mass, and the judge is the volume. And of course, comprehensive port cannot aggregate such a big volume as a core port and big ports. So my first remark would be to get rather larger envelope reserved to comprehensive ports projects. As my colleague said, CEF funding in the past for comprehensive ports is less than 15% of the whole, and we would appreciate that this envelope would be widened, significantly widened. The second point concerning motorways of the seas, we have some experience in a project called Atlantis, and through the experience also, we know that in order to develop the transfer of cargo from road to sea and rail, it has to be the help. The help has to be significant in this on this criteria. That is to say, the meaning of the concept of the MOS has to be redefined probably by simplifying access criteria, in particular links between ports outside the core network, and that's the same situation as my colleague from the Baltic Sea, and providing as well a significant financial support for maritime links as alternative to road, and that's move cargo from road to sea and rail. That's at this stage. That's my contribution at this stage. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, now it's turn to Villu. Villu Vestat, please give your point of view from Estonia.
Thank you for giving the floor to me, and also thank you for organizing this kind of meeting. And my first emphasis would be on the nowadays situation, that this kind of coming together from BPO and ESPO side is achievement by itself already, because 5 years ago, I can talk only on behalf of the Baltic ports, the comprehensive network was really not in a coma exactly, but it was not noticed because all the steam and the emphasis was put on a core network, which by that time was understandable. And I'm also happy to see that Professor Kurt Bödvik has joined us and gave this new and refreshed overview of the Commission's view or European Union's view on 10T network. But to start with the ideas and inputs and to put it into perspective, Saarteliinid, the company we're running here, is a state-owned company responsible for regional ports in Estonia. We have more than 20,000 calls for interstate ferries per year, more than around 3 million passengers on the ferry lines, which means twice as more in our ports, so almost 6 million passengers, and 1 million cars per year. But besides that, we are also serving regional goods and regional entrepreneurs. So we have 1,000 calls from different ships and around 1 million tons of cargo per year. So therefore, I feel like I have enough hinterland behind me to tell that that we have. I can represent many partners from the port business. And firstly, which is more important for everybody, looks like European Commission now acknowledges us, looks like BPO acknowledges us, I mean comprehensive ports, but what is lacking behind is that national governments still don't acknowledge comprehensive ports well enough. So of course we can understand that core network ports like Port of Tallinn or Port of Vuosaari or Rotterdam or everybody else are major employers, major money makers. But you have to understand that the world is not single-minded. So it's like we have to take into account that we are like trading mall. Trading mall have anchor trading centers, but they also have boutiques. Boutiques offer quality goods and offer tailored goods. So my view on this networking is that we have to do it together with core network, but comprehensive ports can be these tailored boutiques who offer alternative and sometimes shorter routes. So therefore, if I can ask Mr. Bödvik, going back to Brussels or European Commission, please try to wake up national governments also everywhere in Estonia, in France, in Sweden, and they should pay more attention that it's not only about the big business, but it's really about regional development, because that gives sustainability to the network, not just going together and summing it up, but just distribution, dividing, and those should be the ideas for the future. And of course, together with colleagues from all the other countries, I strongly believe that sea transport is the future. It's much easier to diminish or neutralize carbon footprint in sea pollution. We just got news from Scotland that the first hydrogen fuel local ferry is tried out there. So it's going rather quickly, and talking about, for example, self-driven vehicles, it's easy to see that it's much more emphasis by volumes and also by traffic to put self-driving or self-floating ships on the sea, that self-driving trucks onto the roads. So there are many perspectives, and I'm really thankful that these topics are coming up. But together with this waking up governments, I have my permission from my colleagues from BPO and comprehensive ports work group to point out that that we still see those target years, 2030 for core network and 2050 for comprehensive network, and we still ask kindly and remind ourselves that to have and to get to the working network, transport network all over the Europe, those years should be closer. So I strongly suggest that if TEN-T policy will be revised, please revise also those end years. To my mind and to my colleagues' mind, core network and comprehensive network should be developed hand in hand, going together. And if we don't reach it to year 2030, maybe 2035 is more realistic. So, and that will give the chance also to equalize and diversify and coordinate different kind of financial support. So all in all, those would be the two main targets that include governments and include comprehensive, but time-wise into the TEN-T development. In general, to conclude it, I have to thanks to BPO and ESPO, and of course European Commission and Kurt Bödvig. We are on the picture, and I'm very, very pleased to hear that on 1st of September we will have a chance to participate on another webinar, to hear important things and to give input. So that's all for now. Thank you for attention, and good luck. And I strongly hope that this kind of webinars will be regular in the future, because we need them. We need to intercommunicate and exchange information. Thank you for organizers also. Bogdan, Marta, everybody, well done until now. Good luck.
Villu, thank you very much. I'm very appreciated for this contribution from all panelists, and having Professor Bödvig with us, I would like to ask him to give a response to those voices. I have made some notes, but maybe I would give the floor to you, and then I'll try to summarize those voices. Professor Bödvig, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your statements and comments, because for me it's very necessary to hear how the ports are thinking and what of your ideas I could involve in my plans. Let me say two things before. I think we have a good chance also for comprehensive ports, because Green Deals mean until 2030 we have to reduce emissions of 55%, which is a huge task. And if you can ship from road to sea to short sea shipping, also between two comprehensive ports or more than two comprehensive ports, then could that be a very good cornerstone for this? That is the one. The second is, what I've seen is that the smaller ports was very flexible during this existing COVID crisis, which is also a good argument to say perhaps we can. It's not the big volume, but it's a fourth of the 3.8 billion tons of cargo is in comprehensive ports, and that shows me it is a volume, but it's perhaps a smaller volume per port, but all in all, it's a huge volume, and therefore I think we have a good chances for the TEN-T regulation and then for the SEF handling, perhaps to make it more flexible. I think it's not possible, Mr. Watts, that also the comprehensive will be realized. The comprehensive net will be realized in 2035. I can say that's not possible. But what we can do is, with common project between core ports and comprehensive ports, we can finance specific projects, and that is also a chance for us, for the comprehensive ports to come. Therefore, we have a very good situation, a new TEN-T regulation by 2021, and I also will say that the next DIP will correspond with it. So also in 2021, I will give the next DIP report with a more current plan. And we know what happened in the COVID crisis, and we know also how will be the transport flow between the different modes, but also between the different parts of short sea shipping. Let me say also what Mr. Lemoulin said, the question of the critical mass. For a project, is a critical mass is what can we ship? What is the volume we can shift to short sea shipping, to a more sustainable transport system? I think that is the only critical mass we have in view. And therefore, I'm optimistic if we can create new lines. And also perhaps if I see neighborhood countries, that is in the Baltic Sea, Russia with their ports, but also in North Africa and so on. We have a lot of opportunities if we can open it also for neighborhood ports. And that is also what is in my mind. Let's say something to the question, wake up the national governments. I think I was going around, and if I'm in the country, I also have mostly a discussion with the Minister or State Secretary of Transport, because what I've heard is that the governments are more open. The question of can two comprehensive ports in one project be financed? The member states are very open in this question. It was not at the beginning, there you are right, but today I can say there is an open mind in the governments, in the national governments, and we also have a very intensive discussion on EU basis in the different parts of institutions which are faced with this task. So I'm more optimistic. It's a hard work. We need support. And that is what I also have in my MOS. I didn't explain it during my keynote, but we looking more in sea basins, and looking in sea basins by MOS, by short sea shipping, shows there are more opportunities. And therefore, on the 1st of December, thank you for coming to this webinar. There we will discuss about the Baltic Sea sea basin to see which are open opportunities we can found. We can create new links between the ports. That is one of the ideas of the sea basins policy I do. And we had 2 times, one for the WestMed and one for the Atlantic. And I can say it's very helpful because there is context. I'm sure for the Baltic Sea, I know I'm the president of the Baltic Sea Forum, and I know which very intense cooperation is inside the Baltic Sea. But what we can do is, what do we see neighboring countries, with Norway, which is working very well, but also with Russia, which is also in the kind of transport flow. And there are a lot of other questions. I hope there was Yes, that was also my answer to the question or to the statement of Patrick Hellman, because we have to see in a concept of shipping every time that there are countries outside the EU and transport don't or shipping don't end at the borders. It has to be to find solution in all directions. And therefore I support this idea as well. As a short overview, are there some open questions or comments? Then perhaps you have the chance now to ask again if it was not concrete enough.
Professor Bodevik, thank you very much for these responses. In fact, when I look at my list, you responded to almost to every point presented by our panelists. Because we are running out of time, it's a different rule in online meetings. You have to be sharp on time, and we are a bit delayed. So I would like now to thank all the panelists, also to you, Professor Bodevik, but also to those who are with us on other side for being with us. I think if I would try to summarize this discussion, what the comprehensive boards are asking is to simply to be upgraded in all 10T policy. It means, of course, investments. It means also maybe this date to 2050 to be a bit closer. But it also means that the access to financing is easier. So all in all, it's very logical arguments, and I'm very glad that Professor Bodevik is optimistic. So let's see how it goes, and I hope that those posts will be, as I said, more upgraded in 10T policy in the future. Thank you very much. Now we have a short break, and we start again at 11:30. Thank you again. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning again. And I hope you all had the time to have a coffee. We are here in the second part of the webinar, BPO ESPO. Thank you, Bogdan, for taking care of the first part. I hope to do as good as you did. In the second part, we will look at the CEF funding and for comprehensive maritime ports. And we have with us Evert Mink from the INIA, the agency, who will give an introduction on the CEF funding and possibilities for the comprehensive ports. So I would like to directly go to Evert. So Evert, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you as well, of course, to ESPO and BPO for organizing such an event. Let's see, can you see the screen as well? Perfect. Well, in that case, I was asked to concentrate my intervention on 2 points so far. Firstly, of course, what have we been financing in the CEF1 portfolio? And indeed, with a view forward, the CEF2 program, the opportunities for comprehensive maritime ports therein. So I think in June so far, we made an overview of what has been funded so far, and this is essentially the maritime portfolio as it stands. A lot of the funding has gone to motorways of the sea. It's the most important priority in terms of number of actions. But we can see that maritime projects and ports are benefiting over a large scale with identified under the core network, multimodal logistic platforms, synergy actions, essentially a total of 150 actions with 1.5 billion funding. And then this year, we're now in the process of finalizing our 2019 MAP calls, and we will increase this again as well with 23 actions. So a lot of the funding, well, most of the funding is being distributed through general calls. Cohesion calls would constitute for roughly about a third of that. And in case all of these actions do then afterwards get signed and end up in grant agreements, it means we will have a maritime portfolio of about 174 actions with 1.7 billion euro of maritime investments. So what we also did in 2020 is we allocated all of our maritime portfolio to the network. And indeed, we've talked about the Baltic Sea. This would be how we see Baltic investments in the sea basin. And that was done by looking for each action, and for each action, looking at what are the ports and where are these investments taking place. And you can basically read on all of this in our brochure, which we published in July, which on the CEF supports the Maritime and North Corridor, where it basically touches upon all of these investments on a sea basin level, following the logic of Kurt-Bordewig's approach. And if you want to dig into the data that comes into this would be the link that you can find on our website as well, where you can dig into, for each maritime port, what is the CEF system doing. Now, about comprehensive maritime ports, it's like, unfortunately, what we see is that significantly less funding has gone to that. From our maritime portfolio, only 48 actions benefit the comprehensive maritime ports, assistingly for essentially a CEF contribution of 120 million euro, with about nearly 440,000 euro eligible costs. Two priorities are the most important here: motorways of the sea and the projects of the core and comprehensive networks. And what we can see is that we've had 2 actions financed under innovation, and also in 2016 we had a synergy call, and that's also where we have 1 action benefiting comprehensive ports. And touching on these 4 priorities, well, motorways of the sea, it's really the focus on upgrading the port infrastructure of essentially short sea shipping links between a core and a comprehensive ports. And what we also finance there is the environmental performance of this link and also wider benefit actions. When we look at maritime ports, it's much more the upgrading of the port infrastructure themselves, And innovation, what we can see is that it's a focus on promoting the use of alternative fuel facilities in ports. We finance studies. That's how we have the two studies, two ports which are benefiting as well in the comprehensive network. And synergy, it's really a call that we organized in 2016, with the focus of synergies with the energy program, and the specific action finances LNG studies benefiting Cyprus comprehensive ports. So that's basically, when we look at this portfolio of actions for the comprehensive ports, it's really what we've been focusing on is the upgrades of MOS routes, of short sea shipping links, the investment into an alternative fuel network, RPS, LNGs, etc., and indeed port infrastructure. And port infrastructure was maritime access, capital dredging, good examples, the Port of Pladiski, basic port infrastructure of Istad and Rauma are very nice examples, and a lot of actions focus on the rail hinterland connectivity. That could be anything from Civitavecchia, Santander, Kiel, Avilés Castillo. To touch on more recent examples, I believe that we will also hear this later on Bostrom, but the upgrade of maritime links to Port of Istad is a very nice action focusing on infrastructure in the ports, breakwater, port basin, 2 ferry berths and capital dredging. For an action upgrading the link between the Port of Istad and the Port of Świnoujście, with indeed LNG investments in the Świnoujście and on the maritime routes. And from the last call in 2019 in Santander, this would be a nice example of more alternative fuel investments with infrastructure. They're realizing a new dock with a rural ramp, but as well it includes the construction of LNG terminal and as well the training of port personnel. So CEF2, the general objective, if I can complete this topic, the general objective then afterwards is essentially the development and modernization of our transport European network, transport, energy and digital, like CEF1, and as well it has a larger focus on decarbonization. So what we can see, and what will also be reporting on in the future, is that we are linking our CEF budgets as well to climate change objectives, with the objective that 60% of expenditure will contribute to climate objectives. And it has also included a much larger emphasis on synergies between the sectors. Now, the budget is still under negotiations between Council and Parliament, but for the moment, we're seeing a budget, general envelope of 11.3 billion euro, cohesion of 10 billion, and there also will be military mobility, and that budget is currently set at 1.5. So for our comprehensive maritime ports, it basically means that there'll be 2 overarching objectives which you can apply for, the development of the TEN-T network and the modernization thereof. And indeed, what we're doing in the CEF2 program is 15% of that will be reserved to the comprehensive network. And that's where maritime ports can then afterwards come in with all of their investments on basic port infrastructure, access, etc. And then afterwards, it's the second objective, which modernizes the existing TEN-T network. This is where you will find motorways to the sea, the upgrading of port infrastructure between two core and comprehensive ports, and as well the investments of new technologies and innovation for all of the investments into this alternative fuel network. If we're looking at co-financing rates, between CEF1 and CEF2, there's been an effort into simplification, and that's why, at least looking at the general envelope, the general co-financing rate is 30%, and 50% if it's a higher for, of course, if it's studies, and indeed if your project is focused on creating an alternative fuel infrastructure in the ports. And then indeed, we will have the same for cohesion envelope, 70% and 85% in case of cross-border links and missing links. There's also military mobility, but that's less relevant today. And if I can conclude a little bit about what are the other features of this program, what's changing now is that we will basically be adopting in December 2020 a multi-annual work program. And this multi-annual work program would then cover the next 3 years of the program. And this is, of course, contingent onto the CEF regulation, the budgets being completed and adopted, but at least that's our current planning. And that would basically mean that we could launch our next calls in the second quarter of next year. And indeed, as well, Code Bodewijk is very important to us in terms of the political priorities, and CEF2 also foresees a larger role for him in the assessment of the projects. Now, outlook, and just more concluding about the CEF2 program, we see that this, I could say that it basically provides new opportunities for comprehensive ports. It's focused a lot on simplification, and indeed it would be beneficial, even though I recognize that sometimes that's quite hard, considering the local context of some ports, but to make use of the possibilities of the MOS program, because this is really where to have higher co-financing rates, and you can finance the port infrastructure that you have when you're making short sea shipping links between ports. And then indeed, what's happened, a very big change, which I'm very pleased about, is that we're switching to a 3-year multi-annual work program, and that should basically provide for a lot of more stability than we had in CEF1, where basically each year the priorities could change as well. And now at least we'll know what's going to happen. So thank you very much for a very interesting session, and indeed, I'm looking forward.
Okay, thank you, Evert. I think it was a very clear overview, a lot of figures as well, but this is good. This at least we see how important MOS and so on has been. We always in ESPO have been saying that, you know, we know MOS and everything, but if we look at the overall CEF, the maritime related and port-related investments or funding is still a very small part of it. So we also hope that this, if we see the entire envelope, that this will increase. So, but let me go now to the debate. And I have 3 ports. We have 3 ports with us here today. 3 boutique ports, maybe, if I have to refer to Vilu in the first part of the webinar. And I have the port of Ystad, Björn Boström, who a port of Ystad is in the south of Sweden. For all our participants who are not from the Baltic. And then I have Francisco José González Méndez from the port of Motril in the south of Spain. And I have Federica Montaresi from the port of Marina di Carrara next to La Spezia. So in the nice region of Cinque Terre, I think, no? So the region we cannot visit at the moment. So good morning, everyone. I think for me, the 3 speakers can put their microphone in a way on unmute, because that makes it maybe a bit more lively. So you can really intervene. I would like first, maybe very briefly, in 1 minute, how is the port doing at the moment with, do you see the volumes going down? Is the port working? But really 1 minute, because this is not the focus of the debate, but it's important. Federica, maybe.
Okay, good morning to everybody. Thanks a lot, Isabel. Yes, 1 minute about the situation in our ports in La Spezia and Marina di Carrara. Now is quite well, because we had less traffic specifically in May and in June. The 40% less in May and the 37% less in June compared to 2019. So now in August we had the 14% less in traffic compared to the last year. And so we are in a better situation from August to now. So we hope that the worst scenario has finished, but we don't know considering the situation, but the worst months are in May and June.
Okay, Bjorn, very quickly, how is it going in Ystad?
Well, at the moment, quite well, actually. But in March, we was hit by this pandemic situation, lost more than 80% of all passengers. Being one of the biggest passenger port in Sweden, actually the third largest one, we suffered, of course, big losses. Fortunately, we have very good partners in our shipping lines. So they took advantage of the summertime and the new way to have a holiday. You know, you talk about staycation. Everybody's staying at home or very close to the vicinity of home anyway. So we have actually set some new passenger records during this summer. It's marvelous. We also got a new ferry route from Ystad to the German port of Sassnitz, started in September. So, well, to be frank, right now we are not back at the same level, but we are very close to.
Okay, thank you, Bjorn. And then Francisco from the port of Motril. And maybe, Francisco, you just say how it is going in your port, and then you directly go on with maybe sharing your experience with CEF funding or European funding for the projects and the investments you want to make in your port. I do not know if I don't see Francisco. Francisco, are you there? Okay, I just hear that Francisco is not present, so I then just have Federica and Bjorn, so that gives us a bit more time with these two ports. So Bjorn, I know that you have been a lucky one. You have already, with your port, received quite some funding through CEF and so on. Can you just briefly, very briefly, and explain the projects you were in and your experience?
Yes, well, to be frank, I have been and to some extent still am very critical about the granting system within the European Union, but we can come back to that. We have applied several times for grants for investment in our port. Finally, actually, in 2018, we got a positive answer from INEA that we actually got a lot of money, and we are talking about a real high volume of money. Together with two Polish partners, one shipping line and one company for LNG, we got out of let's say a portion of 40 million euro, our project got 34 million euros. So that was about 85% in a total, and we are very proud of that one. In Port of Ystad, we are building 2 new ferry berths, dredging to new depth for modern ferries, for, let's say, the next generation of ferries up to 240 meters long, suitable also for bunkering LNG. And the other partners, they are building vessels for LNG that couldn't fit in Port of Ystad if we didn't build the new ferry berths. And the third party is a company delivering LNG in Poland to the ferries. So, and we are actually ready. We started last year in January, and we will take over our new premises the first day of December, and hopefully the first commercial ship call will come actually New Year's Eve, hopefully.
Okay, thank you, Bjorn. Federica, maybe you can explain, I think, about the Marble project, if that is the one project you're involved in, or are there other projects?
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation and to have the opportunity to speak about our project Marble. I'm here with also my colleague Simone, he explained more in details some activities that we are developing in the project, but very, very quickly I describe in general the project proposal and why we have decided to submit this type of proposal in the CEF last year. As you told before, the port of Marina di Carrara is a comprehensive port, is 25 kilometers far from the port of La Spezia, that is a core port in the Scandinavia-Mediterranean corridor. And we have two different specialization. So the port of La Spezia is specialized in container traffic and in cruise also. And the port of Carrara is specialized in general cargos and in project cargos, so special equipment to send by the vessel in all the world. And we have also very small vessel for cruise also in the port of so the Port Authority of the Eastern Ligurian Sea is the port authority that has the governance of the two ports after the Italian port reform. And so after the new Italian port reform, we had the opportunity with the Connecting Europe Facility program to submit this proposal because the port of Marina di Carrara has never submit this type of project. It was a great opportunity for the comprehensive port from Europe, of course. And the project is, the name is Marble because the port of Carrara is specialized in the transport of marble. And the name, appunto, Marble is Maritime Port Bridging Landside Infrastructure, and is a project focalized on for the improvement of the access to the port by rail and by road, because the current situation in the port of Carrara is not good for the access to the port, specifically because we had some problems. We have some problems for congestion, and also some problem to manage the access and the transport of special equipment from the industrial area that is just behind the port to the main gate of the port. So the reorganization of all the accessibility to the port is the main focus of the Marble project. Now I give the floor to my colleague, so he explained very quickly the main activities that we are developing in the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Simone Facciardi, collaborator Federica, and very quickly, as Federica said before, the port is a comprehensive one, and we are here for this, but it's very close to the ScanMed corridor on rail and on road side. For this reason, is 5 kilometers from the highway and the railway connection. For this reason, we submitted the proposal that is shared also with the plans of a global project that was shared with the region Tuscany about is a global project including also the rehabilitation of some areas of the little town of Marina di Carrara, and also for facilities for tourism. But in our case, it's dedicated to the connection of the rail of the port with a new bridge and with a new gate access to the port from the port to the railway line, Pisa La Spezia, and also together with some other specific works that include a new bridge for trucks, because it was not the objective of the call, but it was the works are linked, so they are eligible, and at the same time also a cycling path, because is one of the facilities for the citizens. And in the concluding, also the aspects regarding the new layout of the stream of the river very close to the port area. This is important.
Okay, very good. So I think we have now an idea, because if I understand well, your project is more in infrastructure project, whereas the project of Björn in Ystad is more the LNG. So in fact more under the horizontal pillar, if we would see it in the new CEF2, let's say. So, I have for both of you 2 questions, in fact, and you can answer them at once. It's first, what has been the most difficult in submitting a project? What was the most difficult, and what would you say if I'm European Commission, I would change the legislation like that? This is my first question, and my second question is: do you have to adapt your investment plans as a consequence of the crisis we are in? Do you already see that, or do you say no, we can pursue how it goes? Björn, can I give you the floor first?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I will answer the second question at first. No. A straight answer, no, because we are almost ready. And our next step of the investment plan is not next year. So we have no problems with the investments due to the current situation. And as I told you, the current situation right now is quite good again. To be a small port, we are one of the biggest ports in Sweden, but we are still just a comprehensive port, and we have a very, very small organization. The biggest challenge for us is actually to get the experience, the competence, how to apply for EU grants. And it's extremely difficult even to understand the English language used for the application forms and so on. That's maybe the hardest thing for a small port, actually, to be able to get the experience and the competence. We have to buy it from some consultants, and then luckily we got some very good ones in our case. But I think that is the biggest challenge. Besides that, we are not allowed to apply for grants like a core port. And I want to just to stress, sometimes we hear that we have 2 layers. We have the core ports and we have the comprehensive ports, but that is bull, to be frank. We are at the same TNT network. We are working at the same level. We are working together. It couldn't be more obvious than that. And therefore, the biggest challenge is to survive for a lot of comprehensive ports, looking at core ports very, very close to a comprehensive port, getting a lot of EU grants, when the comprehensive port is not getting anything, not a cent. And you can unfortunately see that to some extent this current system is tampering with the market. You move cargo and you move passengers from a comprehensive port to a core port, but we are in the same network and should be treated equally. Thank you.
This was a clear message, Björn, and I think it is important. If Europe also only had to count on core ports, it wouldn't work. So I think we need both. Federica, can you maybe say, well, for you, what was the biggest challenge participating or submitting your project. And also maybe if you can just very briefly say, are there already discussions in your port to adapt investments or investment plans because of COVID, just to see, has this been a game changer?
Okay, thanks for your question. I think that our big challenges was to convince our colleagues of the Port of Carrara to submit this type of proposal, because they are not so confident, not so good in this type of European projects, and so we are able to convince them that with the office in the Port of La Spezia, the European project office of the Port of La Spezia, we can do a good work collaborating, of course, with the colleagues of Marina di Carrara. I have to say that the project Marble and is, as I told before, is focalized on an infrastructural project. And we had all the agreements at the regional level with RFI, with local communities, and so we had a very strong commitment about the project, and this was very good for Europe, for submitting the proposal. And also the Port of Carrara and the Port of La Spezia are in the same network, and so this is another key point for the submission. And the only point that I have to stress, and where we worked a lot, was on the cost-benefit analysis, because Europe is a specific requirements for submitting this type of project, and Europe pay a lot of attention on the cost-benefit analysis, but we didn't have this the analysis, and so we had to work a lot on it. But I think that was very important, the strong commitment that we have on the proposal, and when we promote our intention to submit this proposal, we collected a lot of letter of interest from also the industrial areas and the companies in the industrial areas close to the port of Marina di Carrara. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Federica. We have a question in the chat, I see, and this is from Vilu from Estonia, who is asking, but this is a question for Evert in a way, what is happening, because in the CEF2 there is a budget for military mobility foreseen. Of course, the budget has become smaller, but Vilu is seeing it as an opportunity for comprehensive ports. Maybe you can just briefly, Evert, give a reaction on that.
Indeed, not a problem actually. Vilnu is of course completely correct that indeed we've had the CEF military mobility, which was discussed very much in 2018. It's still part of the package, even though indeed the budget has diminished somewhat vis-a-vis the Commission's proposal. But indeed, it's something that comprehensive maritime ports, if they're on the military network, could also indeed use for their projects. It's essentially only today my presentation was very much on CEF1 and how this has been implemented during the last 7 years, and that's indeed why indeed that was the focus on the priorities where comprehensive ports could essentially use their investment funds in CEF2 for the upgrading of their infrastructure, alternative fuels, basic port infrastructure. But he makes a very good point.
Okay, thank you, Eva. I also have a question to Mr. Bodwig and maybe also to the panelists, because and to the panelists, what do you think about the idea of Mr. Bodwig to work on this maritime space, to see it so more? I think we support this more integration of the maritime dimension into the TEN-T network, but what do you think about it? And then to Mr. Bodwig to maybe also give a reaction, because what I'm wondering is if we integrate more and we go hinterland connectivity and so on, are we then also, will that be reflected in a bigger budget, let's say, because in the CEF now we have the motorways of the sea, which is then for the maritime dimension. So this is a bit the wider scope, let's say, the more integration, but are we then not needing also a bigger part of the cake? But Federica, maybe can you say maybe your thoughts on the ideas and the proposal of Mr. Bodewig?
Ecco, okay. Thanks a lot, Isabel. Okay, I think that for the future and for the call, we had to work a lot on the maritime integration, as you told before, with the connection with the hinterland. Our project Marble is an infrastructural project, but is focalized mainly on the integration between the port and its hinterland, close to the port, but is a connection. So I think that this point is very important for our for the future call, and because it's the key point for the competitiveness of a port, to have the best integration, an infrastructural integration, but also a digital integration between the port and the hinterland. So I think that for the core port, but also for the comprehensive port, of course, we need to stress on these two types of integration, infrastructural and digital.
Okay, thank you, Federica. Bjorn, please.
Yeah, I'm very glad that Professor Bodewig addresses maybe another way to look at the TNT and the MOS system. One thing I just missed during the presentation was actually the connection to the market. So once again, where are the markets? Because we are not being helped by only political decisions if the market wants something else, and the market always finds the best and the best solution and the most, let's say, healthy solution, at least economically. So I think we have to adapt what system we ever will have in the future to actually to the market's needs, and actually to what the market has been building up for a very, very long time. I don't think we should use European tax money to change something for what the market has built up, but to strengthen what the market has been building up for several years.
Okay, thank you, Bjorn. Mr. Bodewig, I do not know if I think you're still connected, and so could you maybe give a short reaction also to the colleagues, to the people in the panel, and I don't know if Professor Bodewig, are you, or is Professor Bodewig? Yeah, you're there.
I'm here. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the question was if there is a European maritime space.
Yeah,
is that also the sign that there is more money? Then I can answer not yet, but that is the work we have to do, and it's also a question of support. The idea is, if it's not only short sea shipping, is it an integrated system, then we have also the opportunity to get money from different kind of financing. And that is what I was describing in my example this morning, when I said the last call was just also a differentiated part to finance, the one part with grants and the other part inside the blending facility. And that is the way I try. We can go together. That is a way to look forward. But you know, there are two barriers today. The one is there is not an existing MFF, so we have to work together that Parliament, the council coming together, and that with the member states we get a MFF, and I hope it will have also a good part that we can get the money for different tasks, for different projects in the future. And what I will say, because that was what I heard in the communication of the Commission after the Green Deal decision. There we could hear about a lot of sustainable transport system, but not of short sea shipping. And that is what we have to do. When I see a project from Civitavecchio to Barcelona, that reduced 3,000 kilometers road transport, if it is going by ship, and that is really a part of emission reduction. And I think that is what we have to do all together. We all together have to say, short sea shipping, the maritime dimension of TEN-T is a way to get these good goals, like reduction of 55% emission until 2030, which is it's only 10 years. And therefore, I'm very optimistic that that's the way to use short sea shipping, to use ports and shipping industry for this goal is on a good way. But we have to support it. That is what we have to do.
We count on you, Professor Bodwig.
And I count on you.
Let's do it together then. So I have another question, and maybe for Evert, because there is a question, you know, that climate mitigation and decarbonization is all very important, and there will be a lot of investment needed. But climate resilience will also be a big topic, and I always say ports are on the first row when it comes to rising seas and extreme weather circumstances. So are there also possibilities for financing, or will there be for the comprehensive ports? Evert, can you maybe clarify this? Or?
Of course, indeed. I completely agree. Climate change and indeed rising water, stronger storms, this can have a huge impact on the maritime ports. Whether or not it can be financed at the moment with CEF infrastructure, I would say it's less obvious, less relevant at this moment, because that's indeed what we're financing here is very much based on the infrastructure. And this is more of a policy question that indeed it's good to raise at this stage. And I think that's, especially with Bodwig here at this moment, that that is indeed something that he should reflect on in his detailed implementation plan. But if we can finance this next year under the current program as it stands, not much less, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Evert. I think we are almost finished with we have to keep the timing, but I just would like a final word of Bjorn and a final word of Federica before I conclude. So do you have something you wanted to share this morning and that I didn't ask, or maybe something you want to share with us? Bjorn.
Well, I would just want to thank you, everybody, to bringing the subject of comprehensive ports up on the table. I think we have to be more talkable, and we have to talk more together, and we have to stress more the importance of the comprehensive ports, not only to be comprehensive to the core network, but to be a part of the core network. Thank you.
Thank you, Bjorn. Federica?
Yes. Yes, Isabella, I'm a fan of the integration between core and comprehensive network. So for my side, I think that Europe, with this type of call, give us a great opportunity for a comprehensive network to promote itself. But specifically, I hope that also in the future there will be a a promotion of the integration between the core and the comprehensive ports and the network. In Italy, we have the Italian port reform where we have in the same port authority the port network and the core network and the comprehensive port, no? And we are working a lot with this type of law on the integration between the two type of ports. So I hope that also Europe will work in the future on this integration. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Federica. So as said, this brings us to the end of this seminar, webinar. Hopefully we can soon go again to a seminar, but the messages I heard is the English language in the, let's make it very concrete, in the papers you have to submit and you have to read to go and to submit your project. Then I also heard confidence, maybe that there is maybe a lack of confidence for comprehensive ports, saying like, oh, should I go and submit my project? Am I not too small or too? So this is maybe also a message. I also heard about both infrastructural and digital integration, and then the integration between comprehensive and the core network. We noted also connection to the market as a point. And then we also well received the support and understand the support of Dr. Bodewijk, Professor Bodewijk, on short sea shipping as a sustainable mode of transport. I would like to thank all the panelists, Professor Bodewijk also for his time. Also, I would like to thank BPO for the cooperation to have this webinar together, and all the participants for joining. And I would leave this message. When I started in working with ports, I was at a conference, and there was an American speaker saying, just remember, every port is #1 in something, whatever the size is. So maybe this is a good message for all of you. I'm sure each of you are #1 in something. So have a nice day. And on behalf of BPO and ESPO, thank you for joining, and hopefully see you next time at another event. Thanks.